Strange Studies of Strange Stories.
Winston Kirby walked home across the moor just before the twilight hour, and it was then he felt that the land was at its best. The sun was sinking into a crimson froth of clouds, and the first gray-silver light began to run across the swales. There were moments when it seemed all eternity grew quiet and watched with held breath. It had been a good day, and it would be a good homecoming, for the others would be waiting for him, with the dinner table set and the fireplace blazing and the drinks set close at hand. It was a pity, he thought, that they would not go walking with him, although in this particular instance he was rather glad they hadn't. Once in a while, it was a good thing for a man to be alone. For almost 100 years aboard the ship, there had been no chance to be alone.
That was the opening of Founding Father by Clifford D. Simak, and we're coming in from the moor to tell you about it here on Strange Studies of Strange Stories. I'm Chris Lackey.
And I'm Chad Pfeiffer. Our reader today is Jason Compton, making his debut on the show. I know Jason from doing theater around Madison. He's a producer and director for Madison Shakespeare Company, and also sometimes hosts radio literature on our local radio station, where he's been kind enough to have me on as a guest.
Oh.
He is also the co-host of a podcast called The Retro Adventurers, and that is a show for fans of classic text adventure games. Do you remember playing those?
Yes, of course.
I had Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for my Commodore 64.
Yes.
I couldn't get out of the bedroom in the beginning of the game. You know, it's those games where you write, get wallet, go to door. Yeah. Jason was also nice enough to have me on the Retro Adventurers a couple years ago when they were covering the text-based game The Lurking Horror from 1987. I came on to talk all about Lovecraft. Jason is a busy guy. He also co-hosts a podcast called This Week in Retro.
Wow.
It's a weekly roundup of the hottest stories from the world of retro gaming and computing. We'll link out in the show notes. And as always, if you're listening today for free and would like to unlock the 1,000 plus shows in our library covering all that is good in genre literature, and support us as we enter our 18th year of podcasting this very month, please subscribe on Patreon. Enough of that business. Let's get into today's story. We are once again doing a grab bag of tales this month, and I was very happy to return to this author, Clifford D. Simak. I know other folks with that surname pronounce it Simak, but I am getting the pronunciation of his last name from a 1975 interview that I will link out to in the show notes. It's an interview from the University of Kansas.
Clifford Simak is a Minneapolis newspaper man born in 1904 who has spent much of his life writing about events that never happened. He began writing science fiction in the 30s and had his first big success in 1939 with a series of stories and novels for Astounding. His best-known novel, City, won him a reputation as a philosophical writer with a gentle heart. He writes about solitary, capable people alone on farms, in woods, at one with nature and themselves, who face unexpected challenges from life or the stars, or the stars, or the stars.
It's so 1970s film strip that it almost sounds like a parody.
We've covered Simak before on the show, once with his story, Desertion, and another time with the team-up that he did with Carl Jacobi, The Street That Wasn't There.
Both of them excellent stories. Simak wrote a lot in his career. His dominant style of story is known as pastoral science fiction. High-concept stuff, but using rural settings, individualistic backwoods kinds of characters, which makes sense to me because although Simak was introduced in that film strip clip we heard as a Minneapolis newspaper man, he is a Wisconsin native. He was born in Millville, Wisconsin, and he actually attended the University of Wisconsin here in Madison, where he also taught in public schools in this area before moving further north.
This story, Founding Father, was first published in the May 1957 issue of Galaxy Science Fiction, and that's the version I read on the Internet Archive.
I found this story initially in The Century's Best Horror Fiction, Volume 2, edited by John Pellin. Also on the Internet Archive, I came across that. I was searching around for something scary. So while this is definitely a science fiction story, the first context it was presented to me in was the horror context. And while there are no jump scares or monsters or anything like that in the story, it definitely has an unsettling effect overall. So let's just get into it.
Our story begins with a man, an immortal named Winston Kirby, walking out on the moor, enjoying the scenery as the day comes to an end.
And right away, we get that pastoral feeling. He's having a nice golden moment out there on the moors. I thought perhaps he was in your part of the world, in Yorkshire, with the mention of the moors. It's only at the end of that selection that we get the science fiction. It says, for almost 100 years, aboard the ship, there had been no chance to be alone. So these are moors, presumably on another planet.
He's not alone on this planet, but he's alone now. And he loves the companionship of his colleagues, but he appreciates this alone time. And I appreciate my alone time.
You sound a little under the weather right now, so it seems like you caught something from somebody. Hopefully it wasn't me transmitting COVID over the wires.
I think when we recorded the podcast, you gave me COVID.
I can't believe that worked that way. Well, more alone time would have spared you this illness. But...
I know. Well, despite the love of alone time, he's eagerly anticipating coming back to his friends. And he thinks about how fortunate they all are to have gotten along so well. They were on that ship for 100 years and just arrived planetside a few weeks ago. 100 years on a ship is a long time to spend with anyone, but his 5 companions are great people.
In our current space travel program, I know that the astronauts are pretty intensely vetted on how well they get along with others, how easygoing they are.
Yeah.
They're all going to be shoved into a capsule and living in close quarters together, so I can see why that's a really important requirement.
Well, yeah, because if you're stressing people out, stress is really bad, especially in those really high intensity, high risk missions that they're doing.
Nobody wants to see a slow slap fight happen on the International Space Station.
Winston Kirby wonders how they managed to all get away together, because normally Earth would only spare 1 immortal for such a mission, but 6 of them were sent.
It says, Earth had real and urgent need for all of its immortals. And that not 1 but 6 of them should be allowed to slip away to live lives of their own was beyond all logic, and yet that is exactly what had happened. And Simak is able to suggest quite a lot there. Apparently, some humans in the future don't die, but this doesn't seem to be something that is available to everybody, so it's not just a medical advancement. And later we discover that it's a mutation of some kind.
Yeah.
And that's why each immortal is so valuable, because they're so rare. But it's the mark of a good author that he doesn't get into the weeds on that. He just drops what needs to be dropped.
Yeah.
And moves on.
Winston Kirby returns home to the manor house, a big building that the robots have constructed, a fitting structure for life out there on the moors. Robots in this story are simple automatons with basic communication skills. They don't make good companions.
He comments later in the story that the robots have no sense of humor. In the foreword for Skirmish, the great short fiction of Clifford D. Simak, it says, many of his aliens have a dry, otherworldly sense of humor, and others are unintentionally amusing in their speech, behavior, or appearance. His robots are full of personality, as are his dogs. By contrast, his heroes are ciphers. His protagonists are often boring men, never described and never reappearing. One of Simak's editors objected to his stories because his heroes were losers. Simak replied, I like losers. I did like his description of the robots in this passage where he's returning home to the manor house that's been constructed for him and his companions, though, because it reminded me of current consumer AI. He writes, they're efficient, certainly, and very well intentioned and obedient and nice to have around, but sometimes pretty stupid. This is the reason that he says that, though. When he's describing the house, he says it's exactly the kind of house he had dreamed about for years, precisely the kind of house to be built in such a setting, except that the robots had built it much too large. So they really overdid it with this place.
Looking at the house, Winston Kirby thinks about all the times during their journey around the dinner table when they would just plan and discuss building this place. And now it's real. They were a little worried that the exploratory reports might have gotten things wrong and the planet wouldn't be inhabitable. But nope, everything was just as it was supposed to be. And now Winston Kirby has time to build a family, a dynasty, all the time in the world. And he didn't have to do it alone. He had the best friends gang. And he loves them so much that he can't wait to return to the manor house.
They would be waiting for him when he stepped through the door. There would be laughter and a quick drink, then a leisurely dinner, and later brandy before the blazing fire. And there'd be talk. Good talk. Sober and intimate and friendly.
God, that sounds nice.
That's the best friends gang for you. But as he describes their manor house, we get a little more information on what's going on.
But here, finally it was. Something out of Hardy, something from the Baskervilles, the long imagining come to comfortable reality. There was the manor house, with the light shining from its windows, and the dark bulk of the outbuildings built to house the livestock, which had been brought in the ship as frozen embryos and soon would be emerging from the incubators. And there the level land that in a few more months would be fields and gardens. And to the north, the spaceship stood after years of roving. As he watched, the first bright star sprang out just beyond the spaceship's nose, and the spaceship and the star looked for all the world like a symbolic Christmas candle.
It was his companions who got him through this long space journey. They shared a love of human culture, arts, literature, philosophy. During the whole 100 years journey, they never had a spat or got cabin fever, and that's pretty hard to believe. But then again, if you have robot servants doing everything for you, you wouldn't have those typical roommate fights about, doing the dishes or paying the bills.
Right.
But still, how long can you talk about philosophy? I mean, like 10 years?
Well, apparently we could talk about vampires and robots and barbarians for 18 years, so I do believe in the chattiness, but getting along the whole time seems like a stretch.
Yeah.
Again, I was reading this in a horror anthology, so everything here had that feeling of they were the perfect family.
Right.
They were the perfect best friends gang. It's all too good to be true.
He thinks about his companions, where they'll be when he gets back. Cranford Adams will be in the big chair by the fireplace. He's the thinker. Alan Burbage would be standing, leaning on the mantel with a drink in his hand and a twinkle in his eye. He's the comedian. Cosette Middleton would be laughing with Alan Babbage because she's the laugher. And Anna Quince would be curled up reading a book because she's also a thinker. And then finally, Mary Foyle would just be waiting. She just likes being friends because she's the boring one.
They've put together a perfect complementary team. It sort of seems like the cast of a sitcom.
When he gets home, he opens the door and he's greeted by the nice warm air, but nothing else. No one's around, no laughter, no conversation. He immediately feels fear and concern, and something's not right. He rushes into the main room and it's empty, but not only empty, it's different. The fancy furniture is gone, just simple functional chairs and tables. Winston Kirby calls for the robot, Job, and Job comes running in and he asks, "What's wrong?"
Where are the others? Where have they gone? They should be waiting for me. Job shook his head just slightly, a quick move right and left. Mr. Kirby, sir, they were never here. Never here? But they were here when I left this morning. They knew I'd be coming back. You fail to understand, sir. There were never any others. There were just you and I and the other robots. And the embryos, of course.
What?
Oh dear, it was too good to be true.
Job explains that they waited as long as they could, but they needed the equipment for the incubators. They had to disengage the Dimensino to get on with the work. And something about what Job is saying seems familiar to Winston Kirby, but he can't quite remember.
Apparently the Dimensino, which is just dimension with some letters rearranged, it's some kind of device that alters reality for a person, a very, very advanced Matrix-like virtual reality device of some kind that our main character was using.
Yeah.
But with space travel, all energy has to be conserved. Everything has to be put to multiple uses that comes out of that rocket ship. And so this device had to be turned off, or its batteries had to be used for other purposes now that they're here.
Job the robot goes on to explain that the embryos came through wonderfully. Of the 1,000, only 3 were non-viable. The incubators are set up in the outbuildings, and they will have animals and human children in a few months' time. Job said that they waited as long as they could to spare him, but the resources are needed for gestation. Winston Kirby thanks Job and says that was very considerate, but he's still actually confused about what's going on. He says, "It's not possible. I lived with those people for 100 years.
It was coming back to him, some of it slowly and reluctantly, emerging vaguely after all the years of forgetfulness. He forgot against the remembering and the knowledge. He tried to push it back into that dark corner of his mind from which it came. It was sacrilege and treason. It was madness. It wasn't just that the people in the Dimensino had been invented for him. It was this whole manor house as well, everything in it, the rugs and the tapestries, whereas the reality is just Spartan and cold and real and lonely.
Job looks worried as a robot can, and he can tell Winston Kirby is having a hard time with this. Winston Kirby says, "I haven't been eating food like the fancy food that I think I've been eating. I've been eating ship's rations." And Job confirms this.
Job, he said. Sir? It was all delusion, then? I am afraid it was. I am sorry, sir. And you robots? All of us are fine, sir. It was different with us. We can face reality. And humans can't? Sometimes it is better if they can be protected from it. But not now. Not anymore, said Job. It must be faced now, sir. Winston Kirby laid the plate down on the table and turned back to the robot. I think I'll go up to my room and change to other clothes. I presume dinner will be ready soon? Ship's rations, doubtless? A special treat tonight, Job told him. Hezekiah found some lichens, and I've made a pot of soup. Splendid, Winston Kirby said, trying not to gag.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happens in the movie, The Matrix.
Sure.
The characters come out of this lovely late 90s delusion, and they're all dressed like Clan of the Cave Bear, and everything's grimy and crappy. It's a very interesting metaphor because even without the technology, we are all plugged into various sorts of delusions to get through the brutality of life.
Oh.
So you can see why stories of this kind are appealing.
Yeah, of course. And it makes me think of the things that we tell ourselves, our little white lies to make life bearable. But what do we actually really need to live? Mm-hmm. Is it just comfort? Or do we need our jobs? Do we need to feel important? I was thinking about this in conjunction of somebody posted George Orwell's review of Mein Kampf from 1940, which I was like, what? That's weird. But
I thought it was weird that you had written about that in the notes when I saw it, that you had just read George Orwell's review of Mein Kampf. I was like, were you trying to figure out whether to pick it up or not? This Hitler seems interesting, but what's his Rotten Tomatoes score? I got to dig into this. So somebody pushed this out to you and you saw it.
It popped up on one of the social media things, and then I was like, oh, that's interesting. What did he write about it? And it was something that clicked for me, something about society and humans that I didn't really think about before. But I'm going to quote just a bit from it. Read the whole thing. It's not very long, but it's very insightful. He wrote, "All three of the great dictators have enhanced their power by imposing intolerable burdens on their peoples, where socialism and even capitalism in a more grudging way have said to people, I offer you a good time. Hitler has said to them, I offer you struggle, danger, and death. And as a result, a whole nation flings itself at his feet." And it makes me wonder about this story and the idea that Winston Kirby had total comfort. And maybe that was what he needed, comfort and gentle companionship, acceptance and love. But maybe that's just what he wants. And other people need conflict to feel like they're alive. They might need to bicker and then make up. We were talking about this before, Chad. You were talking about the inner child when we were doing
Changeling
last week. And how we have things that happen to us when we're younger that set up our expectations for life and what makes us feel normal and makes our lives feel real.
Right.
I don't think what happened to Winston Kirby would have worked for me. I need more out of life. What would the Demencino create for me? I know it wouldn't be this BS, with a bunch of people sit around doing philosophy and stuff. I would have gotten bored with this in a month.
A huge manor house on the moors with a bunch of awesome companions.
Well, that would be cool for like a few weeks or a month, maybe 2 months.
But then the hound would need to attack and you'd have to solve the mystery. Yeah. You'd need some good diversion and you'd need more.
I need conflict. I would need some sort of problem to solve to feel useful, to feel needed.
Yeah.
That's not what the story is doing. And I get that, but it made me think about these things. And I think that's, a testament to the story.
Yeah, you are raising a good question. I mean, I think it would probably be attuned to the person in this for him. Obviously, he has some love of, we don't know what his background is, but it sounds, he's referencing these books and stories that are written on the moors. He has some love of that or some wanting of that as an ultimate destination for him. I mean, maybe you would think, I'm finally getting my reward. I can finally calm down and stop working so hard and chill out. That sounds more appealing to me now, but I know what you're saying.
However, for Winston Kirby, he's happy with this. It's his heaven. And now he realizes that his heaven was a lie.
Speaking of heaven, it is interesting that the robot is named Job. And when he references another robot, his name is Hezekiah, another biblical figure. Why are all the robots named after biblical figures? And I found that fascinating, even though they represent this ultimate reality.
Winston Kirby goes to his room, and it's not the fancy 4-post bed that he remembered, but a common standard one. The more he thinks about it, the more the idea is creeping into him that he knew that this was all fake. Then he allowed himself to have the fantasy and then just kind of forgot it was a fantasy. That got me thinking, well, how much do I do that? How much do I choose to believe a thing that either may or may not be true, or even something that I know isn't true, but I believe it anyway? Like, my boss really likes me, and I'm good at my job, and my boyfriend thinks I'm the prettiest. Or even on the flip side of that, I'm garbage. I suck at everything. I shouldn't try to do anything because I'll fail. There are comfort in those thoughts, and we ride those thoughts because of that comfort.
Storytelling is the human language and capacity that is indomitable. I mean, I don't know how many legal dramas I've watched where one person has the facts and the other person has the better story. The person with the better story is going to win.
Yeah.
To your point about the Mein Kampf thing and dictators, the story that rulers tell their people, it's always a story. And if that story is attractive to you, you're going to follow them.
Well, Winston Kirby knows that the ride's over because the machine that was helping him in this delusion is gone. And it seems that the machine works by enhancing your imagination. So it's not a holodeck situation, which I thought it was maybe at first. It just makes your imagination more real. Like how if you imagine touching someone's hand, it's not as real as actually touching somebody's hand because it's a construction of a memory, and it's a very flawed one at that. Where the Dimensino seems to give those memories more detail or more weight, and maybe even some kind of endorphin boost as well. The story doesn't get into the technology or any of the specifics, but I'm just extrapolating from what it does say.
You would think that he's probably in some kind of harness or bed or some futuristic thing while all this is going on, a la The Matrix or Alien or something like that. But just now, he was actually literally walking outside while he was having these fantasies, although... and this is probably the reason the story got classified as horror, the device which produced these illusions, it's already been put to different uses. So when the story opened up, he wasn't under the influence of it.
No.
He was walking up to the manor house that he was seeing, expecting his companions, and he was doing that all on his own. That wasn't the Dimensino working on him.
Yeah.
He was having those thoughts, and he was seeing those things because he's been living in that illusion for 100 years, and so his mind has adapted to it, and it doesn't just go away when the stimulus from the machine goes away.
Yeah.
Because he's evolved over 100 years.
Winston Kirby thinks about why he took the mission originally back on Earth, because there's a limited number of immortals. As you said, they're mutants. Only he could shepherd a new colony so far away and expand the human empire. And odds were not in his favor, even for this mission. It was 5-3 against. But he took it on anyway. And he and the other immortals were sent out to colonize other planets to be these founding fathers of this new civilization. And everyone in this new place would be younger than him, and he would have to be a father, or a proctor, a judge, a sage, an administrator, the glorified old man of this brand new tribe. And I could see that being very appealing, however, very lonely.
Definitely. But at least he will have society here on the planet. It was really that long space trip. They needed to do something with him so he didn't go absolutely crazy, because they don't want him showing up to be founding father in a state of insanity.
No.
Which, when we watched like Interstellar, they had a similar plan where they were sending scientists out to all of these far-flung places to see if they could colonize them. They ended up like Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Insane.
Right.
Even if he's got the robots to keep him company, we know that solitude drives folks crazy.
Yeah.
And this delusion was the best solution.
In the loneliness of this tiny room, he came face to face with it and felt the sick sense of loss. It was a reckoning that had been extended into the future as far as it might be, and extended not alone as a matter of mercy, of mere consideration, but because of a cold, hard necessity, a practical concession to human vulnerability. For no man, no matter how well adjusted, no matter if immortal, could survive intact in mind and body a trip such as he had made. To survive a century under space conditions, there must be delusion and companionship to provide security and purpose from day to day. And that companionship must be more than human. For mere human companionship, however ideal, would give rise to countless irritations, would breed deadly cabin fever. Dimensino companionship was the answer, then, providing an illusion of companionship flexible to every mood and need of the human subject, providing as well a background to that companionship, a wish fulfillment way of life that nailed down security such as humans under normal circumstances never could have known.
Despite his memories flooding back, it all feels very wrong to Winston Kirby. He pulls himself together, he's got a job to do, and there's a lot of work to be done. But he feels a temptation to go back to the delusion. And he feels like he might actually slip back into it whether he wants to or not, like a madness. So Winston Kirby feels the need to warn the robots that something like that might happen. But what's the harm in indulging, he thinks to himself. and he quickly tries to push that thought away.
That beat about warning the robots, I mean, we're talking about extreme solitude versus human companionship, loneliness versus the need for people. But here we see how this delusion is also a metaphor for any comfortable but destructive behavior. I've been eating so much cake every morning for breakfast. It's really bad for me. I should tell my coworkers that if they see me eating cake, slap it out of my hand.
Right.
But, maybe I'll tell them next week because,
yeah, of course.
I mean, one more piece of cake now isn't going to hurt me. And then it goes on and on. So, I mean, it's a pretty elastic metaphor here as well.
Well, and it's also pretty disturbing if you think about it, because sure, he's made the space journey, but he's got months before there's babies. And then he's going to have to wait years to talk to another adult. And all those adults will be basically his kids.
Yeah.
So he's got he's got decades of just being the only adult around.
And he's going to have to work out these delusions in that time.
Oh my God.
When he says, I should let the robots be aware that this is happening to me, it seems clear to me they're already aware.
Yeah. Yeah, they know.
And have probably had to deal with this situation multiple times.
Well, Winston Kirby goes out and looks over the generators and the buildings and the incubators and sees everything is going as it should. It's all under control. So there actually isn't anything for him to do. And this opens up the thoughts of his lost friends and his sadness. And in his sorrow, he starts seeing carpeting on the floor and fancy drapes on the windows. And he freaks out. He's not in control of his mind. He runs up to his room and he slams the door behind him.
The room was the way it should be, bare and plain and cold. Thank God, he thought. Thank God. A shout came up the stairway. Winston, what's wrong with you? Winston, hurry up. And another voice. Winston, we're celebrating. We have a suckling pig. And still another voice. With an apple in its mouth. He didn't answer. They'll go away, he thought. They have to go away. And even as he thought it, half of him, more than half, longed in sudden agony to open up the door and go down the stairs and know once again the old security and the ancient friendship. He found that he had both his hands behind his back and that they were clutching the doorknob as if they were frozen there. He heard steps on the stairway, the sound of many happy, friendly voices coming up to get him.
And that's the end of the story. He's stuck halfway between reality and this comforting delusion.
Does he indulge or does he resist?
Or can he help himself? Is it too late?
Yeah.
Did he live too long with that delusion that he can't break out of it?
One of the things that really resonated with me is that he realizes he's not really needed at this point. Because the robots have everything under control. They built the place. They're doing the incubation. They're probably going to actually take care of the day-to-days with the kids.
But you need that one human influence.
Sure.
Probably for his adaptability of thought, the very thing that's causing him problems now.
Yes.
I mean, humans are pretty advanced computers, so I could see them saying it'll be almost all robots, but let's have one person there who, can improvise and think through things and fix stuff if they go wrong, but then also can be a real human for the new humans to meet and learn from.
Right.
So they're not all raised like biblically named robots.
Yes. But in that time, what is he doing? What's his purpose? What's, your day to day, when you get up in the morning, you have to have something to do. All these studies that are done when people retire and how their happiness and their physical health just drop because they don't have anything to do anymore. They don't have a purpose. And there's a period of adjusting to this new life and finding new meaning and new purpose. And he doesn't have that. I mean, I don't know, what's he going to just kind of make sure the robots aren't doing anything messed up? I mean, is that a full-time job?
I don't see how he's going to be able to keep himself from falling back into this delusion.
Yeah, no way.
I mean, he's just a human being.
Yeah.
We need people so badly. We need each other. That's how we're programmed.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of my time alone, but even, I get lonely. I got to get out and socialize.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
And then there's an effect that it might not even happen at the time. You might go out and see people and it was all a hassle and you didn't have that much fun. But I'll find that like a half day later or a day later, I feel better overall.
Yeah.
And I'll go, why do I feel better? I feel happier. I was getting a little down. And I go, it's because I saw people.
Yeah. This is a very harrowing, sad, but relatable story. And I thought it was really well done.
Absolutely.
It made me think of that episode of Star Trek TNG, The Inner Light, where Picard lives a whole lifetime on an alien planet, like in 20 minutes, and he has all the memories of that life.
It made me think of that too. Yeah.
But this is quite different because Picard gets a free lifetime, which is full of the joys and sadnesses of any life that a human lives. But in this, it's more about delusion and distraction, something that we all deal with in one way or another.
I certainly use all sorts of delusion and distraction to keep me away from the harsh realities of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Do that on a daily basis. Doing this show or like being engaged in creative practices is something that I do. That's my go-to. I need to be working on something. And the minute a project ends, I look up, I look around, I go, I got to get involved in something else because the news is making me crazy. Speaking of the news, I don't know if you saw this coming up a lot, but this is real recently, something that was reported on a lot. There was this woman in France who, I think it was a suicide attempt perhaps, but she was in a coma. And in that coma, she dreamed that she'd given birth to triplets. And one of them passed away, and she had these kids. She raised these kids for 7 years. It was very vivid and very real. And then she came up out of the coma and just could not believe that hadn't happened.
Wow.
She had only been in the coma for a couple of weeks.
I remember when I was younger, I had a dream that I had a daughter, and I loved the kid. I just loved it. And I remember waking up and realizing that it was a dream and it wasn't real. And I was so sad. Like, it really felt like a loss, even though it was just my brain backfiring in some weird way.
Well, think about, just how much disillusionment there is in life because of our expectations. And our expectations are often colored in really well. So you think, I went to this school and I thought it was going to be this way, but it went this way. And part of the reason that hurt so much is because you really described in your mind how it was going to go. You really populated it. You really made it real. So that you're genuinely losing something.
Yeah.
Even if it was just something that you'd only created in your mind. And if you have a machine that can enhance that and really make it real, I don't know.
Yeah.
In those Matrix films, good or bad, that is a central conflict that's really interesting. Do you make the choice to be in the really harsh, actual world and try and make that better? Or no, just plug me back in.
Yeah.
I don't care. To me, that illusion is real, so it doesn't matter, so I'll take the illusion. It's a really hard choice to make. It's
not as clear. Some days you want to take the illusion, and other days you're like, you know what, I can't. I just got to be responsible and deal with the stuff.
And then, just as a final thought, I think that folks who maybe lose a religion or exit a family group that they realize was abusive or whatever that may be, there was a reality that was constructed for them by adults that they discover isn't real.
Yeah.
And how do you carry that through for the rest of your life? Because you may have factual information now about the world and be living in a more authentic way, but how many of your tendencies are influenced still by thinking that the religious, just still having the kind of religious upbringing, how does that impact your life even if you don't believe in it anymore?
Yeah. Complicated stuff.
Great story that I thought really nailed all of those concepts in a pretty concise way. And also had that really beautiful pastoral feel to it that he's known for.
It did indeed.
We got to read more Clifford Simak, and don't fight me about it.
I'm not going to fight you.
He's a real writer who wrote real stories. You know who else is real? Jason Compton.
Oh, he is. Jason, thank you so much for reading for us.
Folks, please tune in to This Week in Retro. It's a weekly roundup of the hottest stories from the world of retro gaming and computing. And Jason is one of the co-hosts there, as well as the Retro Adventurers, which is a really fun show. I'll link out in the show notes to all of that. Thank you again, Jason. I, of course, also want to thank our stakers. These are folks that help us produce these free shows for everybody. And they're wonderful people. I'm going to say all of their names right now. I want to thank Cryptocartographer, Bag of Weasels, Alistair Brooks, Continental Breakfast, Schmile Khan, Christopher Rosser, It's a Ghost, Kip Barnes, John Morgan, Angelina Brown, Eric Esvalone, MD, Richard Wolf, and Ben A. You guys are the best. We're going to be back next week and talking about a weird fiction author we've never encountered on this show before. His name is Jean Ray. He's apparently the French equivalent of Poe and Lovecraft. I've read a couple of his stories now. They are definitely weird. The one that we're going to talk about next is called The Maine's Psalter. Remember in the past we did Creatures from the Black Lagoon. It felt like we needed some kind of seafaring weird tale.
Yeah.
And this is definitely that. It's from 1931 and has a real Call of Cthulhu vibe to it. So I think folks are going to want to tune in for that one, definitely. Until that time, I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
I'm Chris Lackey, and you've been listening to Strange Studies of Strange Stories
at strangestudies.com and Patreon. It's on both sites, you see.
Strange Studies of Strange Stories.